Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good day and that this video encourages you and just helps you think about who God is, his ways, his character, and how it is that he works. So, today, what we are thinking about is God's why God may allow evil, or just kind of like what is some of God's motivations perhaps for why he allows a certain evil activity within this world. Yesterday we talked about how God oftentimes allows evil for some greater purpose, for some greater good down the line, and that his purposes cannot be thwarted. He can bring good out of evil. But today it's going to be talking about is one of the other reasons God may allow it may allow evil in the world, pain and suffering and other things, is because of humanity's free will. Humanity's ability to choose may be one of the reasons to that God allows evil into this world. Free will, it goes through a myriad of definitions. I'm simply going to talk about free will, meaning in the sense of doing what it is that you want to do, in the sense that you are able to fulfill your desires. You're able to do. You're not being forced to do that from external forces. You're not bound by fate. It is something that you freely wanted to do, and you did it. So everything that you did is internally motivated. But realize free will has many different definitions, but that's kind of the one that I'm working with. So let's go to Scripture for a second, because Scripture does teach that humanity is a responsible moral agent. Every human being is a responsible moral agent. We are reprehensible for the decisions that we make. For example, David makes the sin of sleeping with one of his friend's wives, Uriah the Hittite, Bathsheba, and has Uriah murdered, and David is held responsible for what it is that he has done. God holds all of us accountable for the decisions that we've made in the body. For example, Romans 3:19 says that now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be stopped and the whole world may be held accountable to God. Elsewhere, the Bible describes that God is going to judge us for every deed, be it good or bad. So the Bible is consistent in holding us as responsible moral agents. In other words, we make moral decisions regarding right and wrong, and we are responsible for those decisions. The Bible is very clear about teaching that human beings are responsible moral agents. The second part is that often human beings, including myself and you, we choose to do evil. For example, Psalm 53:2-3 says this: God looks down from heaven on the children of man to see if there are any who understand, who seek after God. They have all fallen away. Together they have become corrupt. There is none who does good, not even one. So we know that we have chosen to sin. We have chosen to pursue evil rather than good. Now, in general, you might look at your life and go, I don't think I'm that bad of a person, but you can probe your motivation and find that there's usually some sort of sin or evil that is lurking at the door. There really is not many motivations, many actions that we undertake that is not somehow tainted by sin. Almost every action that we take is going to be tainted by sin. And so we are choosing to engage in evil. In fact, the reformers would note that our wills seem to be that has that inclination, that bend towards sin. Which is why they would speak of our bondage of the will. We cannot, in a sense, help ourselves. We do it of our own volition, of our own will, but we cannot help ourselves but to sin. So there's a sense in which we are free and being held responsible, but there's a sense in which we are slaves to sin. The Bible is clear that if we sin, we're slaves to it. And I think if you think about your own life, especially if you're a Christian, you know that there are many times you've grown, maybe perhaps even frustrated with yourself. You go, man, why can't I just stop sinning? It's that idea that we have the inclination towards sin, and we can't really seem at times to rid ourselves of that sinful nature. So let me just kind of recap a couple points that I've made about what Scripture teaches regarding this idea of evil and free will. So number one, we're responsible moral agents. So any ethical, moral decision that we make, the Bible holds us accountable for. We can make decisions regarding good and evil. And the Bible holds us responsible for those decisions that we're making. The second point is we choose to do evil. We choose to do that which is contrary to God's nature, contrary to God's will. So the question is, why does God allow evil? So that was kind of that's where we started. Why does God allow evil? Well, part of it is part of it is like if we are going to have the freedom to do good, we must have the freedom to do otherwise. So this goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. See, when God made Adam in the garden, he had the freedom to do what was right and to do what was wrong. Adam lost that ability after the fall, so now we do what is wrong. Even our good deeds are tainted by evil, but we choose to do that. We are There is nothing within God that is compelling us to do that. So you could say like, well, why doesn't God, like for example, some of the evil that we commit, like mitigate the consequences? You know, in a sense, like not allow us to face the full consequences, or perhaps not let people go all the way. So, for example, perhaps somebody wants to commit murder and they're going out trying to commit murder, and they change the knife into, say, I don't know, say like a piece of licorice, that sort of thing. Well, at that moment in time, we would know um, that God is now stopping people from acting upon their desires, and there's a sense in which God has set up a universe in which we are able to make and follow through with those decisions. God is not constantly intervening and stopping us from doing what it is that we will to do. So one of the reasons God allows evil is because of the humanity's nature. In other words, that the way that God has made us as responsible moral agents, that we are able to pursue our will and able to follow through with our decisions, means that we must bear those consequences. If God's always stopping us from following through with our decisions, then then all of a sudden we're not really making any decisions anymore. We're always being stopped by God halfway anytime that we want to do evil. So part of it is, if we're desiring to do good, if God's going to make us desiring to do good, then we also had the ability in Adam to do otherwise, to do what was right. So not that God intended for us to exercise that ability, but um, God made us with that capability. So it's very what initially sounds like a very uncomplicated idea can get complex rather quickly. But the general idea is, God did not want to make human beings robotic. He wanted human beings that were going to do the right sorts of things as responsible moral agents, because they willed and wanted to do the right sorts of things. But if we're going to be able to do the right sorts of things, that means that we have the ability not to do the right sorts of things. So I'm saying it in that way. I'm trying to be careful with my wording here, because I don't want to make it sound like God created us to sin, because he did not create us to sin. He created us to do righteousness, but we choose not to live righteously, which we call evil and sin. Now, it's another conversation for another day. When you start asking about what evil actually is, what sin is, it's a very I don't want to say complicated, but it's a very interesting discussion, because really we'd want to assert that righteousness can exist without wickedness. Goodness can exist without wickedness. So we'd want to assert those things, because that's what we're looking forward to in heaven. So we want to assert those sorts of things. So the question is evil, wickedness, and sin, is that an equal force to good? I think not. It's sort of like the best analogy that I can think of is to think about light and darkness. One of the descriptions of Bible is that throughout the Bible is that God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all, we're told in 1 John. And when we think about light is a thing unto itself, but darkness is the absence of light, not a thing in and of itself. And in the same way, evil, wickedness is not a thing in and of itself. It's the absence of righteousness and the goodness of God. So trying to be kind of careful with our wording here, because I don't want it to make it sound like evil and wickedness have the same sort of power as the goodness and righteousness of God. So got to be careful with our wording here. I know it might be seeming like I'm getting nitpicky here, but we want to be very careful with how it is that we word things and try to be precise. And I'm sure somebody out there is probably going to call me out for not saying something as precisely or as exactly as I should have. That's one of the things with recording these videos. You kind of put yourself out there to be criticized. So let's kind of recap here. So why might God allow evil? So yesterday we talked about that he might allow evil because he has some greater good intended. He's going to bring about some good even out of that evil. The other reason, another reason God may allow some evil in our world is because of human beings' actions as responsible moral agents. And if we're going to do what is right, He gave us also the ability to not follow through with that and to do that which is contrary to His will. Not that He wanted us to do that, but if we're going to choose that freely, we have to have that ability to do otherwise. So those are a couple of reasons why God may allow evil. We're going to continue to kind of work through this problem as we kind of go throughout this week. But hopefully, this has helped you maybe understand a little bit of God's character, God's motivation, and to realize that evil, the existence of evil, poses no problem to the attributes of God and His character. It just takes some thinking through things and making sure that we're having some good definitions out there. So I hope this video maybe helped answer some of your objections that maybe you had, maybe helped you think a little bit more carefully about your free will and how it relates to God and other such things. And I do, if you have any comments or questions, please leave those below. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.